We don't talk enough about the emotional labor of leadership, the boundaries we struggle to hold, the weight we carry for our clients, our team, and our families. In this episode, real estate entrepreneur Rebecca Blacker redefines success through empathy, resilience, and soft power, showing us what leadership looks like when it's deeply personal and unapologetically human. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soft Power Project. We have a beautiful guest today. Her name is Rebecca Blacker, and she's a co-founder of real estate sales team Blackard and Reed, and she's located in New York City. And she's also a mom of two. So I think today we are going to dive into questions about her journey, how she became an entrepreneur, and what it's like to be a leader in as a woman in 2026. So, hi, Rebecca.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to talk to you today about this really exciting business venture that you have built and the journey in itself. I want to start off by asking you, have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Yes, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. When I was really young, probably like 7 or 8, there was a boy that I was friends with at school. And I just always thought he and his family, like, they had a beautiful home, and his mom was a really big broker at the time, real estate broker at the time. So I remember him saying, my mom always told me I should be an entrepreneur, so that's what I'm going to do. And when he said that, I was like, oh, so his mom's an entrepreneur. Like, I didn't really know what that meant, but I was like, "Uh, that's what I want to do as well." And it was sort of just, looking at a little kid and like thinking, wow, what like a wonderful family, and look what all the things that they have. And his mom was an entrepreneur, so I had to be an entrepreneur.
What is it about her and then watching her that makes you want it to be part of that as well? Because I think it's also from like a women perspective. As a little girl, watching this amazing women building her own empire. Yeah. What is that
Right.
like?
Yeah, so I think what struck me was that he didn't say my dad is an entrepreneur. It was that my mom is an entrepreneur, that there could be a mom that could, be mom and also be doing an amazing thing at work and building something. And so it's funny that mom that I'm referring to, she's really become a mentor to me in this profession. She was sort of the first person I went to when I made the switch into becoming a real estate broker. And if she only knew how much I look up to her. But yes, it was about, wow, somebody's mom could, what it felt like as a young kid, do it all. Have like a great family, have a great son, raise, strong independent kids. Of course, this is not as deeply as I was thinking at the time, and she could run a business.
But that definitely is mirroring what you are doing exactly. And it's so beautiful. I think it's like you had this dream that you manifested as a young kid, and now you're basically living the dream.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I haven't thought of it that way.
And I needed to know, so how did you decided that this is what I'm gonna do? Because I remember you mentioned briefly that basically you became an entrepreneur when you are a young mom, right?
Yeah. My family was in the real estate business. So real estate was in my blood. It was talked about at our dinner table. My mom ended up working with my dad in the business. Then when my brother graduated college, he went into our family business. And so it was sort of understood that that was what I was going to do. And that was actually a business that my grandfather had built. So, it was my grandfather. I had my aunt and uncles and cousins were all involved in this business. And so when I graduated college, that's where I started. I was answering tenant phone calls, I was logging in work orders, and I really just started with doing all the administrative stuff. And that was like sort of how I learned. And then as time went on, I, kind of gained larger roles, and I hired someone, below me, and I was, running our leasing. And my father, who I had been working with every day, after about 6 years, retired. So, and then my brother ended up starting his own business sort of related to real estate as well. And it was really me every day running the show. And you would think, wow, that's an incredible responsibility and incredible thing. But there was something inside of me that always felt like, well, this is an amazing opportunity, but this is not something that I built. This is something that my grandfather and my father built. And I'm
Mm,
just sort of making sure it runs smoothly, but didn't really feel like it was mine. And it was, my dad always said that this wasn't like a career that he wanted me to have managing the buildings that they owned, that he really wanted it to be sort of a stepping stone into something more entrepreneurial for myself. When I started, I was like, what does that mean? Like, so I
mm,
come here every day, I'm doing this, but like, what am I supposed to do after this?
mm,
And then it was really after I started running our leasing, and then I met a bunch of other owners and managers in the areas in which we owned buildings, and I sort of convinced them, like, why don't you let me lease your properties too? I understand we own, we lease our own stuff. Why don't you let me do that for you? And I started my own little brokerage company. I hired a bunch of agents, and we were doing like leasing within our own buildings, but elsewhere. And I just loved it. I was like, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. And so that was around the time my daughter was born. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna really jump in, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna join a larger firm and learn sales. Leasing I had down, but I felt like I really needed, the support and the guidance on leading people through buying and selling homes.
mhm,
So my daughter was 3 months old, and I joined a small firm at the time called Warburg. It was a family-run firm, so I was like, "Oh, this feels comfortable," because I had just come from that, and that's how I kind of made that switch. And then it was really just about absorbing everything from everyone in the office. It was still, pre-COVID, so people were in the office, and I would be listening to all of these like much more seasoned brokers on the phone, and
mhm.
I would go to all the meetings, and I just wanted to learn everything. And then I began doing more social media to sort of introduce myself as, hey everyone, I am now a real estate sales broker, and my business sort of started to take off from there.
Yeah. I mean, what amazing journey. And I do wanted to kind of take it back a little bit. And because as you mentioned, you really manifested that as an entrepreneur. I wanted to be an entrepreneur as a little girl. And you also watched a lot of your family members managing the business growing up. And now you're running your own show and really thriving on social media. And I'm just interested to know what's your perspective on like how much of it that you actually carried from just observing your family, the people in your life, how they run the business, and how much of it it's something that you created on your own. And also, obviously, with social media, that's something that did not exist before. So, just really interested to know what's that like for you.
Yeah. I think a lot of it did come from watching my family members. My brother and I like to joke that our company was called First Metropolitan Realty, and we joke that we went to First Metropolitan Realty Business School. That taught us so much about entrepreneurship and running and, building a business. Because as I said, my brother ended up leaving the family business and starting his own very successful venture. So we definitely got something and learned a lot from my father, each other, probably. I think just as a child hearing about business definitely sort of laid the stepping stone. And then, yes, today is a very different world of starting a business and, sustaining a successful business. And it feels like there's like a moving target that you just have to keep adapting, to. When I first started, it was video on social. So I was like, okay, I'm going to make videos. I feel like now there's a huge, a big AI explosion and how to use AI to further and better our business and being able to adapt to, new things and changing is definitely something I kind of had the foundation when working with my family and my upbringing.
Mm,
I think it's kind of a combination of the foundation and the being able to adapt and just pushing through.
hmm I'm so curious because you have your mentor and also your family, your mom, your aunt, and now you're running the show. Now, do you actually think that women run business differently than men?
100%, yes. For myself, what has really worked that I think men don't typically do is I lead with relationships with the people I work with. So I sort of talked about how at the beginning when I was sort of absorbing everything from everyone in the firm, like I didn't just sit there and kind of absorb, but like be like, you know what, I know everything. I'm just gonna sit here. And I really made sure that like I met every single person in my firm. I asked them a ton of questions. And like I really allowed them to see that I wanted to have a relationship with them, and that was through my asking questions and my following up and my, coming to the office every day and being present. And so it sort of started as like, I'm going to kind of become friendly with everyone in this firm so that if I need something, like somebody's can help me. Then I started doing these social videos and I went to this studio, and the guys at this studio have become really close friends of mine. Like I still use them, speak to them. I was emailing with them this morning. Like I lead with relationships and like getting close to people. Then, I have a team of women now. I get to understand everything about them, their families. I consider them all friends. I care about their well-being. I care about their careers. And then I have someone who runs my firm, and I consider her one of my closest friends. You hear, oh, you can't get too close to the people you work with because somebody's always looking to stab you in the back. Or I don't lead like that. I lead with, I'm going to have such a good relationship with them that they're not going to be able to stab me in the back. Also, a lot of our job is to work with other brokers, right? Sometimes you represent the seller and there's another broker that represents the buyer. And so you are working with them, even if you don't work at the same firm or in the same organization. So I've made it my point to become friends with those people and keep up with them because they can help me and I can help them. And something I think men don't do in the same
Hmm.
way.
I love how you talk about the relationship that you have with the people that you work with first and foremost, because I think when we think of relationship, a lot of people immediately talk about relationship with their clients, but it's really building that relationship around you first and foremost that matters, right? Men and women are so different. And I grew up watching, movies, and I always hear men specifically would talk about, oh, it's just business. It's not personal. And I never understood that sentence because I felt like, what do you mean? A lot of it is personal. It is relationship. When you're connected to someone, it feels personal. What's your take on that
Yeah.
particular phrase?
This is a big topic that I've talked about so much with my team.
Mm,
And it usually is around our clients. Usually it's people that we know or have been referred to us by a friend or a family member. We're working with people that we know and that we have a relationship with already. So we take it all very personally because we already have that relationship with someone. And yes, I also have that voice in my head, like, it's just business, like, this isn't
mhm,
personal. But to me, it's always personal because I care so much about doing a really good job for someone or, making sure that there's nothing missed and that, no one loses any money and, you know, I care so much. So I had a scenario where I had friends that I helped buy a home. I worked around the clock for them, and they ended up deciding very quickly after they moved in that they were going to leave New York City. And they ended up not coming back to me to sell their apartment. I was beside myself.
yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, like, this is business, like, they can choose whoever they want. This was like, what, what did I do? What can I have done better? I wrote them, I called them, I couldn't sleep at night. It was so personal to me. I still think about it to this, it was many years ago at this point, and I still think about it. I still talk about it with my team. So I also don't understand that it's not personal. It always feels personal. I think if you really care about your business and how good of a job you're doing and the people that you're working for, and it's going to feel personal.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, that's tough. And I and I think it definitely will hit everyone for sure. And it's definitely very, very difficult to deal with. I have to say that. Like my heart
Yeah.
kind of sank a little bit when you said that. And I think on that note, and when we're talking about women as a leadership, yes, it's personal because we want to build that relationship. It's that connection that really moved the needle for us. What is it like to learn how to set boundaries? Because I feel like for a lot of women specifically, it's such a big lesson that we all have to learn. And often, not in a really good way. I mean, I don't think anyone learned how to build boundaries in a happy situation. What is that like for you?
Yeah. I'm still working on the boundaries piece. For me, I set a lot of boundaries around, time I'm spending with my family. So I work mostly 7 days a week, but there will be like a Saturday where I will say I'm not going to show an apartment, I'm not going to meet a buyer, and I, sort of plan that out at the beginning of the week, and that's something that is like a non-negotiable. I'm setting the boundary, the clients can wait until Sunday or the following week. So for time, where I don't pick up the phone, I try not to pick up the phone after like 10:30. Yeah.
10:30.
There are boundaries that I set with my time. In terms of my relationships, I don't think I'm very good at that. I think that I get close with the people that I work with. And then, after the deal is over, like I very much care about them. So, I open myself up for getting hurt, but I think that's sort of also my superpower. They trust me, they know that I really care. And
Mhm.
so that's also a reason why people end up, hiring me and most of the time being very happy with me.
'Cause I think that's really interesting, right? It is a kind of situation, especially with doing what you do, and it's so personal. It's about people's buying home, and it's a very personal relationship. And maybe that boundary looks different for you. And just like you said, it's because they know that you're so invested in them, like emotionally, mentally, not just physically. So they put their trust in you. I wondered if that boundary just looks really different for you because, again, that is your superpower in order to connect with people really authentically.
I think the boundary would sort of change the way that I work. I'd rather have the boundary with my time and be a little bit better about that than have the boundary with the relationships.
And I think that's another thing that I would love to ask you. I mean, as a realtor, it is a very people-oriented career, right? Talk to people every day, you deal with a lot of their issues. For anyone who wanted to enter that field, and I do think a lot of the women that I know, especially in the States, they also get it really interested in brokered and real estate. What would you advise them to have when it comes to entering this career, this industry?
I always start with this when I'm speaking to a new broker. It is much harder than it looks. There are a lot of television shows now on selling New York, selling Sunset. They make it look super glamorous and pretty easy, honestly. And I always laugh because they will like show you sort of like they'll like add up the commission that the person is going to make on this deal, this fake deal that they're doing on on the show.
Yeah, yeah.
And like they don't take it into account. Well, like you're splitting that commission with your firm. You also don't get health benefits as a realist. We're all independent contractors, so we get no health insurance. We get no benefits at all. So like they make it look like you're making so much money on a deal. And since those shows have come out, there have been so many people that have entered our industry. I also think it used to be an industry of it could be a part-time sort of hobby, like I'm going to help my friends, sell their
Mhm.
homes and I'm going to have like, you know, tons of flexibility. I'll be able to be home when my kids get home from school and I don't know whether that just used to be the case, but it's definitely no longer the case, right? Like it's a very much full-time job. You can make your own schedule, but you are really like many other professions, it's client focused. So you're on the time of your clients. So I like to start with it's really hard. So it's not something that like someone should just jump into not knowing that. It is a people business and I like to joke that I'm a real estate broker and I'm a therapist. I get to
Yeah.
I'm not licensed as a therapist, but I end up hearing about everything. right? Because it kind of comes out when somebody is either selling, like, why are they selling? Like, there might be going through a hardship, or they really need the money for something. And that's also a reason why you get really close with people, because they kind of let you into their life that maybe they're not letting other people into.
Yeah.
So it is a people business. You have to love people, and you have to be really able to take rejection, because there is a lot of that too. And I'm not great at it, as I mentioned before. I take it all very personally, but there are many of us, and I'm not a fit for everyone. And there are many scenarios where I will go in to a listing presentation, or we call it a pitch, and I don't get the listing. And I have to just be able to move on and say, okay, I'm going to get the next one. So
Mm.
that's what I would say for someone who is interested in entering. It's wonderful. It's so much fun, but it's really hard.
Hmm. I thank you so much for that very honest feedback, because I think that's really what we need, right? Candid feedback. And again, like I'm just thinking about, because you said previously that, oh, you don't answer calls after 10:30. I'm like, 10:30, that is so late. My goodness. So I guess on a TV show, you don't really account just how many hours that you're putting in, and especially weekends as well. Obviously, showing houses, a ton of people only have time during the weekends, so that must be so hard. And you mentioned rejection, which, boy, I think that's part of the reason why I don't do sales, because I'm so afraid of rejection. It's not the selling part, it's the rejection part. I mean, has it gotten easier? Because I felt like it's like a muscle. Is it like a muscle that you just needed to kind of train
Mhm.
yourself to have?
Yes. I think it's also it's a muscle, but it's also just, as you become more successful at it, it becomes less important. And what I mean by that is, when you're first starting, every single buyer, every single listing means so much, right? You're just trying to grab on to, whatever you can get. But as your business grows, and each one feels a little less important. I don't mean like the people are less important. I mean just
Yeah.
like the actual sort of deal. And maybe this is my mind just like, easing the rejection a little bit, but I'll say, "Oh, well, now I know that would have been a really tough sell anyway," right? Like, maybe I'm better off not getting that, because now with my experience, I know, like, this is just a really tough building to sell in, and it's probably was for the best. And I'm able to move on more easily now that I have a lot more going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you said, and I do feel like rejection feels so hard at first, is because we tied our entire self-worth maybe with a lot of different things. And when we get rejected, it's like you're rejecting me
Right,
as an individual. But now because you have a lot going on, this is not so focused, and it doesn't feel that like oh, you're just personally attacking me, or this has nothing to do with my self-worth. You're more detached. Would you say
right.
that?
I am able to be more detached. It's funny, I almost feel it more for the members on my team. If they get rejected, like, I'm like, "Oh my god," like, it almost feels worse, just because, like, I want them to, succeed. And maybe it's the mom in me that it's like, now one of my children is getting rejected. I feel when my kids get rejected, like, forget it. you know,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm not okay, and it feels a little bit like that for the women on the team.
Mhm. But no, I can definitely tell that you're such a warm leader, and you know how that feels, so that's why you're so empathetic, and you don't want that to happen to them. I'm just wondering because, again, sometimes I would talk to my friends and as women leaders of other industries, and we talk about this notion of empath, and how do you be empathetic, also at the same time lead a team and also drive and move forward. And has it been an interesting challenge or balance for you to kind of be all of it? Or has being empathetic or being warm sort of drives you as a leader in your company?
I don't really think about it. I think it's just who I am. It just comes very naturally. I mean, if you cross me though,
Hmm.
that gets turned off.
Yeah.
Like I said, I kinda lead with trust and warmth and empathy, but if something if I don't get that in return, then I shut it down. I always think that you will be the best leader that you can be if you are just authentically yourself, that you're not trying or thinking so deeply about how exactly you're leading. You just are yourself. And people that you are leading feel that, and they can pick up on like the authenticity of
Mm.
you.
I love how you talked about it because it feels like you follow your heart and that's who you are. And yeah, you just have to be authentic. And honestly, I think it's in this day, it's hard to be authentic. There seems to be so many distractions, so many different noises teaching you how to run a business, how to do this, how to do that. So it's like following your own heart. I think that's one of the hardest thing we have to do. And we did talk a little bit about how as a motivation to start your business is to also to show it to your kids, hey, this is what mommy can do as an entrepreneur. Has it been like for you as a young mom of two, running a business, running a team? What's that journey like?
Yes, I think that if we go back to that boy that I talked about at the beginning, that I asked him what he wanted to be, and he said entrepreneur, you could tell in his like face that he looked up to his mom so much. I don't even think we both knew what entrepreneur meant exactly, but like whatever his mom did was what he was going to do, you know? By the way, I just want to say that that boy is still a good friend of mine, and he is extremely successful. And so he had his mom being his like inspiration, right? And I think that there's something to that for me. I've worked very hard to provide just like only the best for my kids, right? They go to a really good school. I very, cognizant of the people that they spend time with, and I try to create an environment so that, they will be successful people when they grow up. And all of that is great, but I don't think it's really what's gonna make them successful. I think what's gonna make them successful is actually seeing it from someone in their family or someone that they hopefully look up to. Um, I try to talk to them a lot about what I do. I've taken them to my office. I've taken them to show an apartment. And I try to involve them, and they, hope, will at least take some of it, and that will be what guides them to their success.
I think it's so true that kids learn from observation. And it's not just about, yeah, us telling them what you needed to become, what you needed to do. It's like they watch you, right? They learn so much from you and your work ethic as well. And yeah, I'm so interested to know this because I ask every single guest that their definition of soft power as a woman, a leader, a mom. What's your definition of soft power in 2026?
My definition of soft power is empathy.
Mm,
I lead with empathy. I do really care about other people, and I've been lucky enough to sort of feel that in return from the people around me. And I think it kinda goes with the you lead with something you want back, then you will get it back, right? So,
mhm.
if you're empathetic to others and you care, then they will give that back to you, and that is
Yeah. Mhm.
that is the soft power that I think women and we have.
I think that's a really powerful message for all of us. And especially if you're a mom, if you're influencing the next generation, being empathetic, it's just the key to lead, to connect. Just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing all your insights. And I definitely will leave your information, your social media account in the show notes. I mean, is there anything that you would like to share with our listeners today?
Maybe just be yourself and good things will come.
Thank you.